Hello there, this is Honest Clyde. I am Eric Elliott, and I'm here with my guest, Buck O'Brien, young Buck
Hello.
himself.
This
Um,
is right. I forgot about that.
can you explain like what you do and how you got into Star Wars for my audience?
All right. I mean, what I do is mostly uh, lurk in people's chat rooms while they live stream. I mean, I don't like. I think a lot of people you probably talk to have like shows or podcasts or things like that, and I mostly just guest on them because the work to do podcasting is a lot of work. I had a podcast years and years back. And that's a lot of work. Like, but I like you'll see me on like Bombad Cast or Radio Rebellion back in the day with Pink Milk, Epic Confrontations from Star Wars in the Galaxy, those kinds of shows. I do Star Wars trivia. My Star Wars journey is, I was born in '86, so by the time I was born, Star Wars was already ubiquitous. It was everywhere. I just wasn't aware that it was everywhere, despite the fact that like I had Star Wars bedspreads and Star Wars toys, but I didn't know what Star Wars was really until I was 10 when they did the re-releases, and then I think I've been an avid follower since. I mean, you see, I got my Ahsoka pops and vintage collection and my novels behind me. Like I collect, I read everything, I play everything. Yeah, that's my Star Wars journey.
Everything?
Yeah, everything. I've read. I mean, I might be a little behind, but I've read pretty much everything, except for like maybe like today's comics. I know that right. Today's new comic book day, right? It's Wednesday.
the like I don't have the reading regimen of comics that someone like Chris Ryan's does. And but
Right,
it's much easier for me to read a comic than it is for me to read a novel because one's way longer and one is
right.
made much better oriented for someone with me that has ADHD to keep attention.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, it has drawings in it. And I'm also a comic book artist slash writer myself, so I
Right.
feel like it's easier for me to like really connect to just like, oh, boom, I got it. Because you got a comic, hour, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Novel, okay, I'm gonna need like 5 to 6 months to get through this
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, I know there's a few novels like the last of the Alphabet Squadron books. Like I'm like 5 chapters into that, and I just can't bring myself to finish it. But I take it with me on vacations, um, which is harder to do with at post COVID. Uh, but like all the other books I've read, I haven't read Rise of the Red Blade yet, just because I was doing the rereading the Thrawn novels before Ahsoka, and then um, I've been doing a reread of Phase One of the High Republic, and I'm almost done with that, and that's been fun. So once I'm done with all that, I will finally read Rise of the Red Blades, which I hear is amazing. Um, I love the Star Wars novels; they're some of my favorite things. Um, I've even gone. I've met a lot of the Star Wars authors at conventions and stuff. Like I love being able to sit there and pick their brains about their books and get their autographs and be able to just be like kind of geek out. Like the last encounter I had was with Claudia Gray in June, and before that Sam Max in March, and they're both just the nicest people, right? Like and um, I've met Timothy Zahn so many times because he lives in Oregon and I live in Washington. So he's always he's always here at different conventions and fan events. And I met him when I was 17 the first time, and I'm 37 now. So, so like 20 years of just like geeking out about like Star Wars books. That's my my bread and butter. I was a bookworm growing up.
See, when it comes to Star Wars novels, I'm really, really behind. Even in modern canon, I'm really, really
Mm.
behind.
Oh, I
Uh,
can understand.
I let's see. There's been a few books I've listened to the audiobook. I listened to Leia Princess of Alderaan,
Oh,
and I
so
listened
good.
to Bloodline.
Both
Uh,
Claudia, yeah.
there was another book I think I listened to. Um, but yeah. I've never in my life read to an entire Star Wars novel, period. It was, I talked to Scott Halliday and saying like it was hard enough for me to read a book for a class.
Right. No, and I understand, like,
And they tell me this thing, I'm just like the only real satisfaction I get is like bragging rights, and I get nerd references. And, like that's it. Like I don't get a grade. I can't advance to the next, semester.
I think, I was one of those kids that I was a bookworm as, like, a defense, was a queer kid who didn't understand what it was to be queer, like, I didn't get that, but I I was socially awkward, so I hid behind books, but with ADD and, like, I would read a page 3 times before I finally would be like, "Okay, wait, let me read that one more time to see if I'd get it." So, like, it wasn't because I was good at reading, it was just that was my security blanket, honestly, you know? And I didn't realize that until later because I don't retain a lot, I have to reread things over and over, right? Like, it's weird that I do as well as I do at Star Wars trivia because, like, my brain is literally a colander, it just seeps out. Like, I have to refresh constantly in order to do well. I will talk shit and say I don't study for trivia contests, but I fucking do. I do. I have to study because, like, my brain just forgets
I
things, and
mean,
I'm bad with names.
of course, you can, spend the entire afternoon just scrolling through Wikipedia and see what's the related names.
Right.
But you can also just watch a movie in the background. Like that's helping you in trivia.
Yep.
Like, most of the time you don't have to do much reading.
Mhm.
Because most of the time when it's trivia, it's not like, oh, what happened in this book in this comic. It's usually what happens in the other media,
Unless you're doing,
usually movies.
in a galaxy with Eli, because then then he does, do references to the books and the not comics, and so then you're just like, "Oh, crap. I gotta study
Mhm.
that." But I love like I said, I do love reading. It is a passion of mine. Um, I think the first book series, because I was really young, was, this is all in the Legends EU, like, was a Galaxy of Fear, which was like the Star Wars version of Goosebumps, right? And it followed these brother and sister who were orphaned and kind of their adventures with their like adopted uncle who was a shapeshifter, and they would go to like, and they were very much like the Goosebumps novels. And my mom wouldn't allow me to read Goosebumps, because we were a highly religious household, so
Mhm.
but she would let me read Star Wars, and I'm like, these are the same kinds of books. Like they really were. And then picking up, I think the very first novel I read was Planet of Twilight, which was like part three of a trilogy, and I didn't realize it, and I didn't get half of what was going on. Um, and but I kept at it, and shortly after that, my uncle was like, "Hey, did you read these new books?" And it was the New Jedi Order, and I read those with my uncle. And we would talk. He'd read one, and he'd give me the book, and I was like, "Oh, I can't wait for us to talk about this." And so when I would get done with the book, we would talk about what was going on. And I mean, seriously, some of my favorite characters and favorite times was during that time. I know some people like may not think highly of the new Jedi Order, but that's some of my favorite times as a Star Wars fan was during that time. I loved Jason Solo.
I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of theistic themes in Star Wars,
Hmm.
a lot of references. I mean, how one of the most important characters, period, is born like Jesus is. He has
Right.
a virgin birth.
Yes.
And not only that, um, Pernilla August, who plays Shmi Skywalker, the mother, she also played
Hmm.
Mary.
Oh,
It was a movie that came out the same year as Phantom Menace. She got to
I
play
had no
Mary,
idea.
uh, and Jesus is played by Christian Bale. That's like
Oh, I
Batman
didn't.
was
I didn't
Jesus.
see that. I didn't even know. That's hilarious because she had two immaculate births in the same year.
Yeah, it kind of seems like typecasting, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I still think it's a coup that they were able to get her to come back for the Mortis arc in Clone Wars.
Mm.
I think that was awesome. Even if it wasn't really Prunella or Shmi's character, it was the son pretending to be Shmi. It was still really fun for her to come back and do that
Yeah,
voice.
they at least tapped the actress to do this extra line.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, how many people had their doubts that Liam Neeson would never come back to the franchise after he was
And
stabbed?
Mortis was the first
Yeah,
time, and the
more,
fact that
but
he was
we got him in live action briefly.
right. But it was really funny because they kept being like, "Oh, there's no way they're gonna get him to come back for Obi-Wan," and like I'm like, he came back for Clone Wars for multiple times because it was Mortis and then the Yoda arc, and then he didn't
Well, at
he
least you
do
know how to get in
voice
costume
in
for that.
Rise of Skywalker, right? Yeah. Then they got him in for Rise of Skywalker, and I'm like, there's no way he's not coming back for Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Like
So
I'm sure Liam Neeson has his own booth engineer, recorder guy. Like I don't think he needs to use the one
oh
at
yeah.
like like he's an established name. Like he's done all
Oh
kinds
yeah,
of voice work
yeah.
even before that.
But he
Um,
famously really enjoyed his time as Qui-Gon. I think it's because it was a one and done. I think that really made it easy for him to be like, "Oh yeah, I really enjoyed this." He gets to be a Jedi and then like kick ass, and then like
yeah,
his death was probably one of the more iconic deaths, on screen deaths that
yeah.
I've seen in Star Wars. Like,
Yeah, and he was right there on the forefront of what's
mhm,
going on with new technology of how to make a full CGI character.
right?
That's crazy. Just like, oh yeah, that happened to me in my life. Yeah, whatever. And
Hmm.
it
But
was
I, loving that he came back for or having him and his son both come back for Tales of the Jedi was
yeah
fun.
to play younger him. Well, younger
Yeah,
character. Not
yeah,
Liam Neeson is not a canon Star Wars character. I'm sorry to inform
that'd
our
be
listeners.
hilarious. That'd be amazing. Would be a
Yeah.
coup.
Um, So, can you speak more about this trivia? What's the
Uh,
record like? How did you start this? Is
okay,
it
so
strictly through
I
Nerd Academy?
not Nerd Academy. I started actually with Radio Rebellion. They were doing um a, a a trivia series. I think they were doing like each of the different eras. So it was like the prequels, the original trilogy, the sequels, but then they also did one that was Rogue One and Solo. And
Anthology.
um, yeah, and it was just those two movies, and like I'd kick ass at Rogue One and Solo trilogy. I've seen those probably more than any of the other Disney movies. Like Rogue One, I think is probably my favorite in the new era films, and then like Solo is like a comfort film. Like my family just we sit down together, we put it on like all the time. So if my sister's here, my nephew's here,
Yeah.
my niece is here, me and my husband, like it doesn't matter. Like we'll sit down and we'll watch it just as a comfort film. And so I knew some of the ladies that were competing on that, and they were looking for one more competitor. And I was like, "Hey, I'll do it." I didn't really know Odie and Alberto over there at Radio Rebellion, and but that since then I've become really good online friends with them. They're really great, and I did that one, and just totally like annihilated the competition in that one, and they weren't expecting it. And then they did one final um, like all the competitors, competed again, and so that got me into the attention of Eli, who does Star Wars in a Galaxy podcast, and he was doing his epic confrontations, and so then I competed against Jerry, the Canon Junkie from Bombad Cast. It's my only actual loss. That one
Mhm.
was I had him against the ropes, but I don't know, like I said, like I can retain things, and I remember my last two questions were like I had like half the answer in my head, but I just couldn't remember what like the whole answer was, and I was like, crap. And then we did another one with just kind of for funsies. So it was we do a team matches, but the team we're competing against, the other member couldn't play, so it was actually me and my teammate and the other guy from the other team, and we all faced off against each other. I won against that. Um, we did the gauntlet on they did a gauntlet where it was basically like 5 people together had 5 questions, and the lowest scoring person was knocked out, and the next person would come in, and there was like 27 of us, and then we went through, and I think if you counted up all the right answers, I think I would have come in second, but because like I got knocked out pretty late in the game, I didn't make it to the end. But the lat one was Alden Diaz and Brennan Marr. Um, that they faced off together at the end, and that was pretty epic. That was a really fun day. To get like 27 people competing against each other in Star Wars trivia. Uh, it's just fun. And it's sort of like you guys brag. There's bragging rights to that, but like it's mostly just to have fun with your friends. Like most of those people, I know pretty well. I either text them daily in group chats or you know interact with them on Twitter quite a lot. And then the most recent one that I did was the teams match. We finally did a teams match, and that one was like close. It was a really close match. I Jacob Bausch and Andrew. Oh, sorry, Andrew, I forget your uh, title, but they're a team. They're Hearts of Kyber, and me and my friend Mo are Tommy Two Horns, which is a Lego Star Wars reference for anyone who needs to know. It is a Star Wars reference, but it is a Lego Star Wars reference. I thought was hilarious.
Is it one of the
Palpatine,
recent specials?
yeah, Palpatine calls Masamita Tommy Two Horns, and I just get a quick kick out of it every time. And me and Mo both like Lego Star Wars, so we're just like, that should be
Yeah.
our name.
I was wondering, I was like, can I go through my mental Rolodex and like figure out which one that is? Because I'm like, I saw the Christmas
Oh,
one, I
couldn't remember.
saw the Halloween one, and I saw the summer vacation one.
Oh, I really don't remember. The Lego stuff I don't retain like that, because I need to save
Maybe we
room
need the
for like
Lego
the
Star Wars
canon.
trivia challenge.
We should do that. We could throw that on. I don't mind making questions for that. The Lego stuff has been fun. Now that it's spooky season again, it's definitely time to rewatch the Terrifying Tales. That'll be
Mhm.
fun. No.
I
Um,
mean, Halloween's coming up fairly soon. But yeah, so like, how did you get involved in this trivia slash YouTube Star Wars sphere?
well, so Radio Rebellion needing that extra contestant, just kind of even things out, and volunteering because I knew Mo and Rachel, um, and make sure that because they were the other contestant, the two of the other contestants, and that I was knew them really well. So I was like, they're like, hey, yeah, like they need somebody else. I know that we know that you love Solo and Rogue One as much as we do, so come on. And then I was like, um, just being active online on Twitter, like my account is my official account was suspended this last June. It's Highball 2814 for reasons.
Reasons?
Yeah, just basically saying what you should do to Nazis when you see them, and apparently that's considered inciting violence. But if they're standing on a street corner waving flags on the side of a street, that's okay. But
Like, for the most part of my life, I try to like not instigate violence or condone it. That being said, if you're going to punch someone, it might as
punch
well
Nazis.
be a fascist. I'm just saying,
Yes,
it might as
you
well.
know,
Like I
I was
said,
in the
it's not right and it's not wrong to do it.
I was in the I was in the U.S. Marines, and we often resort to violent answers to when it comes to enemies, and to be honest, like fascism is the enemy of democracy. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and I
It's
wouldn't
the
say I'm a
enemy
patriot.
to diversity. It's the enemy
Yeah,
to like people like just being peaceful and just chilling.
right.
It has to turn someone into the enemy
Mhm.
uh, on things that make absolutely no sense. Man, yeah, and I said it like I'm sure you know that do appearances on SSW Network, right? And I said,
Mhm.
I'm sorry to say this, but Star Wars fans should know that fascism is not good.
Right.
That's the
Like,
line I said.
I love, Marva Andor, fight the Empire, even if that's not what was originally filmed, like fight the
Mhm.
Empire. And I love that. Like, Andor really did stoke the fires of fighting fascism, and like now that it wasn't there, like rebels, like I think for a lot of people, like resonating with the rebellion again, it was there from the beginning. I think that's always been one of those things that resonated with me. Was it like, yeah, there's the Jedi and the spiritual aspect because I grew up in the church, and yeah, of course, like the spiritual aspect of the Force is there, and you know, but then there was also like the fighting against tyranny and growing up, we're as Americans, it's weird to me because I remember growing up and learning pretty early on about World War II and about Nazis. Like, you can't watch most media without having some reference to Nazis. I mean, if you watched action adventure films, you were going to encounter somebody fighting Nazis. Like,
Mhm.
the Nazis were the bad guys, and like in history class, that was Nazis were the bad guys, and that resonated with me. With the rebellion fighting the empire, and
I
how
mean,
easy
they
it
eventually
is
have
for republics.
stormtroopers.
Right, yes, exactly, but the idea that how easy it is for a republic to become an empire, and making sure things like that don't happen in America or other, democratic nations, like it, fighting for what we believe is right, protests, and then like during the George Floyd protests in 2020, like things were really active in Seattle, and I was living in Seattle at the time. I like really close to Seattle now, but I'm not technically in Seattle. And there were protests nightly, like, and you literally like just walking down the street, and everything, like, and you'd see police brutality, and like it was awful, and even in a place as like left leaning as Seattle, and you're just like, we can't let our off anywhere. It doesn't matter what part of the country you're in. You can't let off
I mean,
anywhere,
the
otherwise
state
tyranny will
is
win,
very
right?
different from the people very, very frequently.
Yes, yes. I know there was a pretty funny Fox News segment recently that came up, where they were trying to like dunk on Seattle about like, oh, the crime and the poverty and the theft and the drug use, and like they were interviewing people on the streets, and none of the Seattleites were having any of that. We're like, you saw crime while you were here? Like, what are you talking about? Like, Seattle, has its issues, but like I love it, right? And seeing that like that spirit of camaraderie within the people just in an everyday segment on Fox News just made me very very happy. You're just like, we're not playing your game, Fox News. Like, no, you're gonna try and twist anything that we say to what you want it to be, but like we're not gonna play your games about like crime statistics, because you can look at anything and be like, crime statistics. Let's actually look at like the programs that actually help the people. Like, what are the cities and states and the nation doing to help the people, and holding our nations accountable. Um and I think holding our politicians accountable is important, whether it would be Matt Gaetz like lobbying to have McCarthy just no longer be the Speaker of the House, or like even like wanting to term limits for people like Senator Feinstein, RIP, like to like get like she didn't do anything in the last however long she was a senator. Like, could somebody have been effective in the time that she was ineffective to help the people of California, right? Like, like, it just is one of those things that like it's every like our we're it doesn't matter like what side of the political spectrum we're on. We like I've always feel strongly like we do need to hold all of our politicians, all our representatives accountable from the lowest to the highest tier of government. And I know like some people don't like to play the game of politics because they're like, it's just to distract the people. But I'm like, if we're not paying attention, who is going to pay attention to our government. And I learned all this from Star Wars because I've read like every Star Wars book, and Star Wars is synonymous with politics.
But yeah, we're talking about Star Wars.
Yeah,
but,
that's what I say. I'll bring it back around.
I'm in agreement with what you're saying. You know, like, I joked around when Jerry was on my channel. I said, I'm going to be slowly indoctrinating my audience to socialism.
Right.
Just like a little joke I said. But maybe it's true. You decide.
I know it's hard not to like lean that way though, right? Because you're just like, why don't we have universal healthcare, and why is college not a given? And like I know I live in I'm not sure about the state. I should look this up about my state, but I know at least my school district, all of our students get free lunches and free breakfasts. That's great. That should be all over America. Like, that shouldn't be an issue. Our kids, doesn't matter if they bring in lunch or not. Like, if they want a hot
It should be
lunch from the
available,
school,
period.
they can go and get it, even if they brought lunch with them. And I think that's wonderful, because sometimes my kids will bring literally like hot Cheetos, Oreos, and a cheese stick for lunch. And I'm like, that's not a lunch, kiddo. Go and get some fruits and vegetables.
Oh, maybe they're one of the fancy kids. They have one of the cheese wheels with the plastic frame around it.
I haven't seen any of those, but there's lots of cheese sticks, because I work with elementary kids. Most of my kids are really young. And it's just, like, I love that I live in this, a school district that my kids at all grades get a free lunch. Like, I think that's wonderful. I know that's not the case everywhere, and I know a lot of my kids need it. I know that a lot of my kids have parents who are unemployed, or get very little work. Our kids can't learn if they're hungry, right? Like, they can't learn if they're trying to figure out where their next meal is coming from, and that takes off one
If
of
we
the
can't
biggest.
profit over it, what is it worth?
Don't even get me. Don't even get me started
joke.
on that.
That's a
Like,
joke.
that's a whole other podcast about work. But like, I working at my whole office. I work in the front office half the time, and the whole front office is fans of Star Wars. We've been all talking about Ahsoka, but the principal is always like watches it late. Like, he watches it like on Thursday or Friday, and so we always have to be like, shh, his door's open, so like, let's whisper about Ahsoka. And it's been fun because, like, knowing how many like how many Star Wars fans I work with, and like just how much, seeing that like people who aren't like in the podcast space or the Twitter verse that we interact with are loving the show as well, has been wonderful. Like, how much it just resonates with people, like, on an emotional level. There aren't very many shows that get me.
Your perception of what an average fan thinks is definitely skewed by what media channel you're absorbing it. Because
Right.
sometimes it can just be like, oh, everything's great in this one corner you're in, and you step out and like you just get hit with all the vitriol.
Right. I just like loving that, like, at work, even though like the principal is not like as hardcore fan as like the rest of us, like, I was surprised, I work with a woman, she's an older Filipino lady, and we found out we were both we have our desks right next to each other, and like we found out we had like all like the same Star Wars things, and we'd like literally like every morning now we're like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Like, and this morning, because it was the morning after finale, she's like, what did you think about this? And oh my God, like, and then this, and then what about that? And, teaching her all these things that she may not know because she's more of a casual fan, but she's really passionate about it, is really fun. I just like that community we got from Star Wars has been fun. I know that, like, I grew up in the church, but being, queer man, I walked away from the church, and kind of like having that longing for community and being able to find it. Like, I know Twitter could be a shithole, but like, I've made the best friends in the world on Twitter. Brian Barry from Pink Milk. Like, you see people like Alden and Jerry and Scotty and Eli and all these people that like I hang out with and talk to all the time because of Twitter, and being on their shows, but like also being able to chat with them daily is just like the community we build is so important, because then we can lift each other up. We can talk about other things that aren't just Star Wars, and like Star Wars is like that thing that draws people together, and I think that's
it's like food.
Right. Yes. and like and the fact that like it is integrated into every aspect of my life is funny. Like I think most of my friends and family expected there to be Star Wars at my wedding. And I was surprised. I surprised everyone by not having anything Star Wars at my wedding. Even my husband was surprised because he did suggest a few
Oh, you
moments
might
of
as well just be a
Star
wreck
Wars.
now.
And I was like, actually, I don't want to do Star Wars at the wedding, and he was really shocked. He really wanted to get Across the Stars at least in there, and I didn't even do that.
What I can say is like, um, the last time my dad was married, uh, he had a cake topper be made and had lightsabers on it, and I helped design it. Everything else was in
Awesome.
Star Wars. Just the cake topper was.
That
And
hey, that's enough.
yeah.
And I seeing kids run around in Star Wars t-shirts at school. I mean, it's mostly Grogu. Like we get a lot of Grogu, especially
Mm.
amongst the younger girls. It just he's cute. So like I think the number one like lunchbox type amongst the girls at the school is Grogu. I think the second like most popular thing is Stitch. It's Grogu and Stitch, which is kind of okay. It's awesome. I love both of them. But
Uh,
the boys too, like you get a
I
little
was
more
like, hey, I'm
variety.
glad the movie cut legs for y'all. Like that movie came out in the
Right.
early 2000s.
Yeah. But like I love to see like the boys there's often a little more variety. You'll get like Darth Vader or Chewbacca. Um, but there's again lots and lots of Grogu and I just love seeing it. Like if the kids see my I have my let's see, the Ahsoka Tano watch.
Oh, snap.
And
So,
the kids will always walk up and like, "What is your watch?" And then like we'll talk about Ahsoka. They know
uh,
Ahsoka. They're like, "That's so cool."
what percentage of the Grogu shirts that you come across are like they look like they're officially designed, or more of them just like it's like a photograph and it says like it's like meme joke?
No, I didn't see any of the meme stuff. Most of it is that like cartoony, the more official cartoony stuff that we saw. But there are several of like full on like it's an image of Grogu from the show. So he'll be like looking off or like with the
Mm.
cookie. The cookie's a big thing. Um,
Holding the tea.
yeah, I haven't seen the tea, but the cookie shows up, because those blue cookies.
The
So
blue
I love that.
meringue.
Oh my goodness. I love those cookies. Have you ever like there's the unofficial official version of those cookies, the
I'll just make it at
that
home. I'm not paying all the that they're asking
well,
for the
there
damn
is the
cookies.
there are the William Sonoma ones, but there is a recipe that because John Favreau went on binging with Babish. I'm a I don't like to cook, but I like to bake, and he did a recipe that it's kind of got John Favreau's like stamp of approval on it, and I make those cookies like all the time, and they're so good. They're blue raspberry, like a blue raspberry vanilla, and they're so good. But they're macarons, and macarons are not easy to make. Like
Yeah,
they can
and
get
John Favreau is someone that knows food. Like he's
yes.
passionate about that.
I
It's not
love
just
the
his.
Chef Show and the movie
Mhm.
Chef. Like whenever like every few months, my husband will want to watch that, and then all he talks about is opening a food truck. And I'm like, no, it's too much work for me. I'm like, that's your passion. You can do it. I
Um,
I just know.
you know what's funny? Like I started this recording. I was like, I have very little notes. I'm like, want people to get to an hour? I'm just like, well, you proved me
I
wrong.
can
We can
talk.
definitely get
I
there.
can talk.
So okay, so the first time you have seen, like we were on the same stream, was we popped into Jarrett's video where he was talking about Ahsoka, and I just happened to miss all the smorgasbord of spoilers.
That cracked me up because you're like, I haven't watched it, and I'm like, "So why are you here?"
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't remember the guy's name, but there was like one person that just his mouth was agape, like as if like I did something horrible. It was so shocking.
I love that, like you were just like, I'm just gonna trust the force that no one's gonna spoil this for me, and it
Oh,
worked out, I guess.
I mean, I didn't care that much. I mean, hell, I got a spoiler just by scrolling through Instagram about, oh, he's showing up. I'm like,
Don't
okay.
don't follow my Twitter if you don't want spoilers, because I'm on.
I already do,
Yeah,
and I'm not willing to shell out the money to Elon Musk just so I can like direct message somebody. I'm just gonna they're just gonna
right.
follow each other, and hopefully it works out. Hopefully you don't get suspended.
I I am just waiting for like Blue Sky or Threads to like get a messaging system, because then I think that will be when the full migration to either of those platforms will be complete. Like I like Blue Sky. There's you can't message people. You know,
I
and
mean,
too many of my
heck,
friends are
a
still on
lot of
Twitter.
a lot of these app companies, like they see what people are interested in, and
Yeah,
then they add it. Like, how
yeah.
long was it before you could have multiple profiles on Disney Plus? It was a long time before they started to add
Was
that.
it?
Yeah, it was a long time
Hmm,
where it was just one. You only have one.
hmm.
But there's like, oh, they saw how Netflix was doing, and and Hulu, and just like, oh, well, we'll do that too. It made it much easier for people because
Okay, I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, I we only used the one. I'm pretty sure there's like multiple, because like my mother-in-law was using it before she passed, and like my nephew was using it, and then I had created one for my job so I can occasionally put on like Disney Plus stuff at work for
yeah,
the kids. And
this was early on. Like it was like
yeah,
several
okay.
months before.
I'm like, I hadn't realized. Man, those kids will eat up Disney Plus content.
Yeah.
It's fun. I love that. I do
Um,
love like Disney Plus has National Geographic, so you can like get away with like, oh, I'm just gonna put on something educational.
so I thought to uh, get to know you better because our interactions are very limited. It's not like
Hmm.
me with Pete or Nick or Chris Ryan's where I'm like there
Right.
almost every Friday. Um, I'm starting to do a segment where I'm just like, what's your favorite, least favorite, and what do you think is underrated?
Okay.
So, what would you categorize that when it comes to books or comics? Which one is your favorite, least favorite, and which one do you think people should appreciate
Oh,
more?
this is fun. Um, my favorite book, um, I think my favorite Star Wars author has not written in the canon, so but I think everyone knows him because he wrote the Revenge of the Sith novelization, Matt
Oh,
Stover. My
Matt Stover.
favorite book isn't Revenge of the Sith. It's the random book in the middle called Traitor of right in the middle of the New Jedi Order. And I think was really was really instrumental in my understanding of like the Force, and um, how I personally interact with the idea of it, like, and it really like I literally read this book once a summer. Like I love it so much. I can quote it endlessly. It's one of my favorites.
That
Um,
would be impossible for me.
I just it's one of those ones. I if I mean I listen to the Revenge of the Sith audio book like twice a year just because I love the poetry of Matt Stover's writing. Um, Something that I think is underrated, because I won't talk about like
I mean,
least favorite.
like, you
I'll
can
end on
say
my least
you
favorite.
can say one that you're just not really feeling.
Um, I think but there's Legends again. I think was the Crystal Star and the New Rebellion are two books
I
that I'm
know
just
about the Crystal Star.
like nah. Like what were you thinking? Like there was a weird
You get the
thing.
mind reading blob. You get Leia's
Just
kids being
no,
kidnapped
no. Like
again. And there's like a centaur.
yeah.
Yeah. There was like a YouTube
What?
video where someone like just talked about like for an entire episode. I forgot his name of his channel off the top of my head, but I was just like, this is really weird. So I can
Yeah,
understand
no, it
why
was really
they
weird.
film that.
Those are like, nah, I don't mess with that. But I think something that was underrated, like underappreciated, is Rebel Rising by Bev Revis. Was the Jyn Erso like
Yeah,
young
yeah.
adult novel, and I think that book, like I think all the Rogue One tie-ins are really good. Catalyst and Rebel Rising, especially. I just think Jin's journey is really good, and it leaves it does a lot of work, but also leaves plenty of space for there to be way more adventures. But it really is just kind of like from the time she's picked up by Saw all the way until she's arrested and ends up on Wobani. Like there's that whole thing, but like there's still plenty of room in there to tell stories. But like it's a really good young adult novel. I think the current canon like has a really good young adult like library. Like if you have when you want to get like middle school or high schoolers into reading, those are some really good books. Like any of the young adult novels are really good.
Hmm. What about TV shows? Yes, this
Sadly,
is Star Wars
I
again.
think
You can't tell you like Twin
right,
Peaks.
right. No, 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 no. Yeah, like sadly, like least favorite probably, and it's not like any of them are bad. They're all really good. Resistance, it's probably the one show I don't suggest it to anybody to watch. Like, I'm not like, "Oh, you should watch it, you should watch it," which is funny because I named my dog after one of the characters. So, like, I
Mhm.
like, Star Wars Resistance is an everyday part of my life, but I'm not like, "Oh, you should go watch this." And it's not that it's bad, like, I love a lot of it. Most of it, really. I thought I was probably one of the early adopters and, I have, like, all the action figures, and I pick up Resistance merch whenever I can find it. I don't it's hard when there's so much Star Wars media. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, you should also watch Resistance." When I'm trying to like, you guys should watch Rebels. And that I think is my favorite show.
Yeah.
Um, but right now it's like tied with Ahsoka, which is like I know a lot of people are like, it's Rebels season 5, whatever. Like they're kind of tied right now, like emotionally for me. Like I love them both. Like they're really really good. Um, I
Mhm.
Rebels.
Underrated?
I don't think like Rebels, I think it's just crazy. I mean, it could also be the underrated thing, but like it's crazy to me that like people had so many issues with it in the beginning. Like I, like I just I don't I didn't have any problems with the art style. It was close enough to the Rebel style or the Clone Wars style while being its own thing. A lot of the McQuarrie homages and references were great. I loved the rapier sabers because they're so much thinner. Um, they're like like I just there's so much about it that I loved. But then there was the relationships, that found family aspect of that show was great. And I literally have never like there had never like I cry, but there had never been a moment where like I wept and wept and wept after Jedi Knight. Like I that if anyone doesn't know this, when Kanan dies, that's that episode. And when I got to the end of that episode, I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And I
See,
get emotional whenever I think about that episode.
I'm upset that I was spoiled by his death before I saw his death, and one of the
Mm.
reasons is because I saw it late.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was a few weeks off from when it actually aired.
Mm.
There's never been a time where I was like, "Oh, I caught a new episode by watching Disney XD." Like I never did. Like that wasn't my way of catching on to it.
I'm trying to think of
Um,
how I watched because I didn't have. There's almost no way I had it Disney XD, but for some reason I had watched it that night, and it wasn't on my Apple TV, and it would have been pretty early because like
I mean, if you
it
have
must have
YouTube
been
TV, like you don't need to like
might have
sign up for
been
the cable
you
service
know
where
what
you can like
you know
catch the
what that
stream.
might have been the one time I had done I think I had done a trial. I think that's what it was
Oh,
actually, and I had done a trial of YouTube TV. That's probably what happened. Um,
it was worth
but
it.
oh man, that episode gets me, and I can still it still haunts me to my like to this day. It's been like 5.5 years, and it's still haunted by it. Like Hera crying out Kanan's name in that moment. That the emotion that she lends to it, and like the heartbreak and the fear and the desperation of her crying out his name in that moment just haunts me. And I just, oof, that episode's so good. And it's
Mhm.
like literally from then on to the end is just this crazy run of wild. It's a wild story. That's how we get the world between worlds and the Lothwolves like really come into play. And like yeah, it's so wild, and that's how we ended up with Ahsoka, right? Like the end of that show is ends with Ahsoka.
Yeah.
It,
That made me cry from that series was the fight between Ahsoka and Vader.
oh
Which I
that's
did
big
not
Star Wars for
the first time
me.
I did not see in the episode. I found on YouTube and that made me cry. It
Mm.
was cut out of context. I was like, oh yeah, there's that Ezra kid, whatever he does.
Twilight of the Apprentice,
Like
I
I was
think
not
is like
familiar.
Twilight of the Apprentice. I think is like peak Star Wars for me. Like I don't think anything comes close to that. Again, Soka's edging its way up there, but Twilight of the Apprentice for me is like the best Star Wars anything.
Even with books.
Yeah, like I love Twilight of the Apprentice
Damn,
so
that's a
much. Like
bold
that
claim.
episode is so good. You get the Inquisitors and Kanan and Ezra and Ahsoka and Maul and Vader and just
You
so
get real
good.
life husband and wife. You get Michelle Gellar and you get Freddie Prinze Jr.
Oh man, I don't.
Who
I
also were in Scooby Doo movies together. That's how they got together.
right, yeah. So I love the. I don't go crazy anymore. Like that's a great exchange. That's yeah. No, Twilight of the Apprentice is really good. But
Okay,
actually, that line was earlier.
so of course we got to talk about the big one, movies. Which one? Favorite, least favorite, and underrated. I feel like I know what your
Uh,
underrated is going to be.
my least favorite. I'm sorry to say is Tross. I just can't. And I saw and
I'm
I
not
say
mad at the
like
answer.
well not like I don't I think it really does. It ruins the previous two movies for me. I know that's like hard for people, but I'm like I
It's through
really
retcon.
right, but also like it really messed my relationship with Star Wars for a long time. Like I had a hard time. I I couldn't read the comics. I couldn't read the books. It's the only time I've not bought a physical copy of the media. I don't own a
Mhm.
copy of Tross. I don't own a copy of the novelization. Like I don't have a lot of Tross merch. Like I
Oh,
just
speaking of
couldn't.
which, Star Wars. Star
Yeah.
Wars. Lucasfilm. Lucas Publishing. Where's our goddamn Tross comic? We haven't gotten it. You dropped the ball.
I mean,
You said it was going to come out and didn't come out. Damn. Okay, sorry. I give him a little
yeah.
context.
I'm not crying over that. So like I'm like it is
Um,
funny that they continue to produce like Mandalorian comics, adaptations of the show, and didn't they aren't they doing an Obi-Wan adaptation? Like, I just think it's hilarious that they're still doing adaptations of the shows, but they just didn't do Tross.
yeah. Now, something that Trust did give us is Adam Christopher writing Star Wars.
Shadow of the Sith is is good. It's funny because it's like all of the elements I hate about Tross are in that book. Like I despise Ochi of Festoon. Guys, I hate Kylo Ren. I'm an anti Reylo.
You hate
Um,
Kylo Ren?
I
Like you
I
just
hate
dislike
Kylo
him?
Ren. I don't get him. Why is he evil? Can someone please explain to me why he's evil? Because he was
What?
already dark before Luke came to him. So like, what was his deal? I don't like Kylo Ren. Again, anti Reylo. Don't I don't like the Palpatine returning stuff. I don't like Ray Palpatine as a thing. Like, so this book is like all the things that I don't like, but it's a really good book.
Okay,
So it's like
okay.
it's hard because I'm like all these elements I despise, but this book is really good. So yeah, Shadow of the Sith, good read.
Apparently,
Does it?
I got to defend my boy. Okay, I got to defend Kylo Ren, not his actions necessarily. A good chunk of time, he's a complete bastard for his actions. But
Yeah.
when you see Han Solo in the original trilogy, do you think, oh yeah, it's gonna be a dad that like yes he's
No,
loving but
no.
he's still gonna be there
I'm
for
gonna
him.
say this is a bullshit response from anybody I get is
Oh,
to
what?
talk about how bad of a dad Han Solo is because Han
It's part of
Solo
it. It's
tried
a puzzle piece.
his hardest. He tried his hardest to be a good dad. He
Mhm.
worried
Yeah.
so much about being a good dad to Ben, and like none of the stories we have ever gotten is Han a bad dad. Now, is he good at being a dad? No, but he's not a bad dad. He is
No.
present when
I didn't
enough
think
to
he's
try.
bad, but I'm just like, do you think he would be an effective one uh, for someone that we know Leia already senses a sense of darkness, and she's like, "Oh, well, the way we could deal with that is like to send him off to his uncle." And then we have the tragic irony of like, he's being manipulated by Snoke, and then he falls anyway, and then like Luke has to
Right.
blame
But none of
himself
that.
because he thinks that
But
he
see,
could
there's so much
have
that
stopped
it's just like it's telling us and not showing us. And like so, like none of that is like that's any. It's not like none of that is like it's not there, right? Like the closest that we've ever gotten to that seeing any of this is like the Rise of Kylo Ren comic, which I'm sure will be retconned. Um, like there's so much of that like based on other media. You're just like, there's no way this is going to stay canon. And the Bloodline novel,
Damn.
there's none of those. But at that point again, I also think that like Ben is 23 years old when he turns to the dark side. Like he's a full grown ass adult, right?
It's,
Like
how's it different than Anakin?
it's Anakin has like a logical like motivation for turning to the dark side, and he had clearly like battled with it. Like his motivation for like trying to save his wife, the love of his life, is something that I can understand.
Okay.
Kylo Ren turning to the dark side still just makes me go, but why?
I think a bigger issue is that you want to understand him, but nothing has been given substantially enough to you yet.
Right, but so that just makes like his whole part of the sequel trilogy just make me go, but why? Why?
Okay.
Why? I'm still not understanding the why, because you were already dark when Luke confronted you. So that's not like explanation for like why you turned to the dark side. You were already dark when Luke had confronted you. So what is your motivation? And like
Like
completing what your grandfather started, what did he do that you want to
I
complete?
do think I do think we'll get more material where we can like I'm sure there's at some point there's just gonna be a book all about Ben slash Kylo. Like it will do gangbusters, and like the
I don't want a
the
book.
railroads
I
will
don't want
just
to.
rush to the
Yeah.
bookstores to come get them.
Yeah, I don't want a book. Like, I don't want a book. That I need
What do you
someone
want
to
then?
I need it to be like at least an animated show. Like, make
Okay,
this
well,
to put it. I think writing a book is a cop would be a cop out. Like, I think honestly would
all
be
you
it
do
would
is
be a
read
late.
books.
I do, but for this story, I feel like it does need to be told on screen.
Okay,
Like, I
okay.
think
Well,
it's
what
the
if we get a
story.
cartoon and we get a novelization of the cartoon? Is that okay
That's
with you?
fine.
Okay,
That's fine. But I just still like oh, I wanted a novel, but I'm like no, like make animate it like because then that tells me that one you believe that the story that you're telling is like worth telling. I still may hate it, but like at least you're putting your money where your mouth is, and
okay,
like that's worth my time and investment. If it's a book, I can just write it off as like, well, this will be retconned by Dave Filoni
okay.
in 15 years.
So, do you judge Vision trilogy in a similar way that you do to the sequel trilogy? Because we really don't know why Darth Vader became
No,
evil in that movie.
no, because we do end up getting I think my problem with the sequel trilogy is it's written as episodes 10, 11, 12, and not episodes 7, 8, 9.
So
So
you
because
need the prequel sequels.
yes, but you can't because there's nowhere to put it.
You make them anthology movies.
No, because it
Why
is not
not?
episodic because then it's not an episodic film.
You can make
There's
you can
nowhere to
name the
put it.
movie. You can name the movie Ren and
Right, but I'm just saying.
Ren, a Star Wars story.
I think you understand what you're saying. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Like they don't write the 7, 8, 9 are not written as 7, 8, 9. They're written as 10, 11, 12. With
Yeah.
the same way that like there isn't enough space to tell a seven. Like there is no room. It goes from 6 to 7, right? Like
Well,
there's no room in there to tell a story. Like yes, you could tell there are 30 years. You can obviously tell movies, but like
well,
episodically, it doesn't fit.
I wouldn't say episodically it doesn't fit. I can understand where you think it needs more needs to be explained. I don't have beef with that gripe of the way it
Mhm.
was situated from the start. You're just like we're gonna push it way further because our original trilogy actors are 30 or 40 years older than they were.
Right.
Um, that being said, like we are getting a Ray movie, and it's not called Episode 10.
Right, but that because we're moving away from the episodic films, and so they can do the James Bond thing where you can just tell a story whenever you want to tell a story, and it doesn't matter how like how
Wait,
many
but
years are
this
in
is the same
between.
canon though. Isn't that like we're
It
going
doesn't
to
matter.
Pierce Brosnan to Daniel Craig?
No, but I'm just saying like it doesn't need to be like a paced out episodic film. They could do like, hey, here's a Ray movie, and then in 4 years we're gonna tell another Ray movie, right? Like it doesn't need to be a Ray trilogy. It could be like, oh, we're gonna do another Ray movie, and oh, suddenly we did 5 Ray movies over 20 years. Like, who knew?
We did all this talking, and I just realized that you still didn't tell me what's your favorite Star Wars movie.
Right, because you
We
wanted to
got
talk about
way
Kylo
off
Ren,
topic.
and and I'm like, okay, I guess I can bitch about Kylo Ren all day. Um,
I wouldn't say I'm a stan, but I'm like I like him as a character.
yeah,
Is that because I think Adam Driver's hot? It's nothing like that. Okay.
it's not.
Damn. I
Uh,
mean, somehow this is
from
gonna be the
one
most controversial thing
one
we've said in
former
this video.
from one former Marine to another. I'm sorry, bro, you're not. So,
Yeah, favorite Star Wars movie.
favorite Star Wars movie. This is my personal favorite, and I know, but after bitching about Tross for 20 minutes, just you're gonna be like, "What?" My personal favorite Star Wars movie is The Phantom Menace. I just, I think that was it was a cultural touchstone. Like it changed so much about the way that we consume media and the right. Like I love that movie so much. I was 13 when it came out, and have as someone who's like delayed developmentally, like I was probably like mentally 8 years old, and so it was like the perfect age. Like
Yeah.
uh, I I love that movie, and it's probably my longest running comfort film. I know I talked about Solo earlier being like like a family comfort film, but like when I need comfort, when I just want to put something on for me, that's my go-to. Like and I quote it endlessly and things. I think uh like I know that there are I can see where people come from with some of his flaws, but I don't see it's a darling to me. So
Mhm.
it's a great
Now,
one.
can you explain to me why Palpatine's evil?
Because he's a Sith and he wants to rule the galaxy. That makes sense.
Um,
Like
but,
I
but, but
get that. But
we
what did
didn't get our
Kylo want?
prequels explaining why he's
What
evil.
did Kylo want? But what did Kylo want? We didn't need to see why he was evil because he was an archetype. But Kylo, like, why? Like, see, we
Mhm.
get that wasn't about why Palpatine was evil.
So, like,
Um,
like one of the reasons I've been working on my own version of Episode 9, not just because I have personal issues overall with the narrative, but I'm just like, there's certain
yes.
things that's like I would like to address, and obviously Palpatine's not in my script at all.
Oh, thank God.
But it's not. I'm just like, oh, look at this movie. It sucks, bro. It's about like uh, you gotta take the good with the bad, and you gotta like do it in a way that you just like people know you still love it. It's not just you only love to hate. There's enough of that.
Right, no, and that's why I don't normally, like, spend so much time, like, bitching about Kylo or Trust, like, I'm not I don't
This has been
I
bottled up
find that
for you
exhausting.
for years.
I find it exhausting to bitch about things that I don't like, I really do, um, and I know I just spent like I said, like, spent forever doing it, but, like, I
Okay.
do like to talk about the things that I love, and, like, there are things about Tross that are amazing. I love. I called it, like, at the like, after having watched The Force Awakens a few times, I was like, "This series will probably end with her be calling Rey Skywalker. Whether she's related or not, she'll be a Rey Skywalker." And the fact that it ended that way made me very happy. The fact that, like, I like her new lightsaber, I wish she had it through most of the movie. Um, like, getting to see
Oh, you don't like we
Carrie.
should just turn it off and nobody.
Yeah, no, I don't like that. It was nice to see, but like, yeah. I as much as again, I'm not a big fan of Kylo, and I definitely don't like the fact that he killed Han. That scene between Kylo and or Ben, I want to be appropriate, between Ben and Han, and that will make me cry. Like I get emotional during that scene. Like I can't lie about that. Like that makes me emotional. Uh, even if I don't like how we got there, it's still an emotional beat that I like. Getting new force planets, Pisana, I think was really fun. It all, um, getting Lando back is great. Seeing the ghosts, you know, even if it would have been better if we had seen the Jedi. It was nice to hear the Jedi. Like there are things in that movie that are redeemable, and never in any of the movies or cartoons or anything has 3PO been better than in that movie. Like that is the best C-3PO ever, and he is surprisingly the heart and soul of that movie. And it's not what you'd expect, right? Like I love
Um,
3PO in that movie.
uh, Before we move on to the last, I'm going to assume you're underrated, so Solo, because of how much you enjoyed.
No, I was gonna say underrated is Return of the Jedi, but Solo probably should have been my answer. But I was
That
gonna
makes
go
way
with
more
Return of
sense
the Jedi.
just by people's.
But yeah, Solo. Yeah, no, that's funny. Yeah, Solo probably is definitely the underrated one.
Yeah,
I was
that
originally gonna
one
go with
I'll agree
Return of
with.
the Jedi.
I'm glad the movie exists. Even though I have major issues with it, I had to calm down a lot from my issues with it. Like it was like putting. You ever see someone like make a sword and they had like stick in like watery ice
Yep.
to just cool it down?
Yep.
I had to do a little bit of that, and like I'm someone that doesn't really rage that much about anything, especially about fiction. But that one was just like, I'm glad I was able to absorb it more before I decided to start going on camera again.
Mhm.
Because I used to run a YouTube channel before this one, where I used to do reviews. Um, yeah, it's very different. It's not Star Wars specific. Um, but so favorite, least favorite, and underrated of Star Wars characters. I swear to God, if you say Kylo
Characters.
Ren was your least favorite, I might have to this video. There's no way he has to be your least favorite.
He he is my least favorite character.
No, there is no
Yeah,
way.
yes. I'm like it's like him on Plot, OTF Festoon. Like I
You're
just
gonna put
accept them
Zero the
all.
Hutt as better
No,
than Kylo?
yes, Zero the Hutt is better than Kylo Ren. Like I yes, I can't I could I didn't say this like any of this like lightly. Oh my god. I do not like Kylo Ren. Like it is I try. I really did. Like M from Peak Milk now for the show formerly Sisters with Sabers, like and I like really try to work on my hate and I love M for putting up with me because she's probably the biggest Raylo and
See, okay,
I
well, I'm about to say something to
I
piss you off then.
right, but yeah, okay, so yeah, so that's it. I think underrated character, um, someone like I love like Maz Kanata. I like the pirate characters, like some like Maz Kanata and Hondo Anaka. Like I love those characters so much, and I feel like the fact that there hasn't been like some sort of like series with like the pirates, like telling like stories, like you could do an amazing anthology series with one of these long-lived pirates. You got Dexter, you have Maz, you have Hondo. They've lived for so long. Why is there not an anthology series that like just touches on like every aspect of Star Wars? Because they like infiltrate, every aspect of Star Wars. Like Maz is older than Yoda. Like tell stories from Maz Kanata.
Who's your favorite
Yeah.
then?
Okay, so favorite. I gotta break this up because um my favorite like Legends character. I know
Okay,
this is hilarious that I was like bitching about Kylo Ren, but my favorite Legends character is
it's Jason Solo.
Close. He was, and then he became Darth Caedus, and then I was like, "But why, bro?" But that's a whole different story. I do like Starkiller, um,
Uh-huh.
and I like the story of Starkiller. The idea of like this young kid who was really force sensitive that Darth Vader decided to raise secretly, and like him pushing away from and learning to like be his own person was really wonderful. I think part of that is again, I think the reason I resonated with Luke so much was the idea that like, my own father was like a terrible, terrible, terrible human being. Um, and the idea that you could break away from that, the legacy, like for Luke, it was a dad who wasn't really around. And so I think the reason why I resonated with Star Killer more was like it was kind of his dad who was around who raised him to be this terrible person, and they broke away from that. And like I resonate with that personally because like my dad again, not a good man. And the fact that like I could confidently say that you know I a better man than my father was. Um and it's not like he had his own struggles and his own issues and like have come to like reconcile with those things. Um but like being a young like I was pretty young when Star Killer came out and just that kind of like I don't know I don't think I knew at the moment why I resonated with Star Killer that way. Um I think it's all like retrospective. But I still love him. Like I just got the new Black Series Star Killer figure. You can check it out on my TikTok. I did an unboxing video. I love him. Him and Juno, I think, are a great couple. And I don't normally ship straight couples. So I think my favorite canon character um, of the new canon is Poe Dameron. Um, I love Poe. It's one of the reasons I don't like Tross is the treatment of Poe. And so, um, but I love Poe Dameron a lot. And like Oscar Isaac brought a lot to
He,
the table. I think Poe is a great character.
he
Um,
also does have great scarf game in Cross.
oh my god, that's one of those things. I mean, I love his outfit in that movie. It's just so queer coded. like,
Oh,
it
you
is
don't
the
like when he's jealous about like what was Finn gonna say to Ray? You don't appreciate
yeah,
that?
right. Like I love that. I love like that was the other treatment of like because they're very clearly like he's they're very much playing like there's an implied relationship or yearning there. And then the introduction of Zori Bliss, who I should love because I love Carrie Russell. I think that costume is
It's
great.
kind
I
of a
think
beard.
her and it's like the most homophobic. It's like almost like a hate crime to have introduced Zori Bliss in that movie. I just and it's like I hate that I don't like Zori Bliss. I should love Zori Bliss, guys. I should love Zori Bliss, but I do not like Zori Bliss. And now
You call a whole
I
character
will
hate crime.
retcon.
Oh my
Yeah,
that's so
it
wrong.
was she was just there to be like, no, Poe is straight,
Do
and
you
I'm
feel the
like,
same way about
I
Jaina?
will no because
Okay. Because they're more
like
flirty.
there is a right they were flirty, but there wasn't the same kind of like they didn't
I'm
have
saying
an
Zori and
implied
Poe
relationship.
Dameron way more flirty. Like he's like, "Can I kiss you?" kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. We're like Xana was all about like Poe or Finn reconciling with his past as a stormtrooper and saying like he wasn't alone. Um like I love Xana, like that she's great. Naomi Aki is an underrated actress. Like we'll say that,
You
I love
know, if you want to say that Zori is a hate crime, then by extension, how they write the yearning for Finn is a hate crime because it's like he gets introduced to great, good, beautiful women, and Jana and Rose. He's like, no, I want the white girl. I'm going to scream her name.
I I yes. Yes, we could definitely go on for hours
Yes.
about that because
Let's call up. Who is it? Uh, ACLU about
yeah.
justice
It's like I
to
cannot
people of
believe that
color and queer coded characters.
Chris Terrio and Lawrence Kasdan and Ryan Johnson are no. All the writers.
Audience, this
Yeah.
is obviously jokes. We don't actually mean
Yeah.
this.
I mean, we just need to make sure that that people of color are behind the scenes as much as they are on screen, right? Um, like the fact that like Star Wars movies have been largely written by white men is wild. Um, I know that we had like ghostwriters and all those things, but like the fact that like yeah, like
Yeah.
we definitely need more people of color to be writing these
I
stories,
mean,
queer people writing these
unless we
stories
talk
as
about
well.
television, every movie has been directed by a cis white man.
Right. Yeah. But we were talking about writing,
Yeah, but I'm just
and
like,
but the
it's
directing
deeper
is
than just
yeah.
the writing. It's like,
And hopefully, like I am meditating and manifesting in the force that this Ray movie does not change directors.
yeah, or
Like,
at least just can we stick with a woman, preferably of
mhm,
color, that can like have a similar
mhm,
energy to the idea of
yes,
this acclaimed documentarian.
right.
Um,
I'm so excited. The idea, like this, like it feels so right to have this new. I mean, I wish I could remember her name. Sorry, I'll know her name will become second nature to me as the movie comes out. But like right now, I do not remember it. But it's still very
was
exciting to see that
it
this is
uh,
for the Ray movie.
Open Shinoy?
Yes,
Okay.
I think that's about right. Yeah. Um, I, I,
I'm just not hearing your name, so I'm sorry if
yeah,
I mispronounced anything.
yeah, and I just it's that kind of energy. The idea of like that's like the kind of person they brought in to direct this movie is really exciting to me, especially since George. It feels so right for Lucasfilm. Like George is kind of had that energy when he first started. I think she's the right kind of energy um, for the next Ray movie. I think it's exciting.
Okay. All right. So before we get to glitch shadows, we're slowly starting to
Oh,
wrap up. Okay. Um, what do you think about some of the topics that I bring up on my channel? Have you
I
watched
mean,
any of the appearances?
sadly, I will say no. But I'm
It's okay.
sorry. There is a lot of like Star Wars content. I
I,
hate to say the word
I,
content,
I'm
but
not
there
upset with
is.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not
Like
like get off my
I was
stream.
like, I'm like, I wish I had all the time in the world to watch all of
Okay.
my friends' content, but
Um, Probably one biggest things people know about me is my Zillow Ray theory.
okay, now this I don't know.
Okay. So in Bad Batch,
We're
we
talking about
see,
Zillabees.
yes, in Bad Batch, we bring in the Zilla Beast, right? And it's the same organization that will eventually lead to cloning the Emperor.
Mhm.
So my theory poses that, okay,
And you
uh,
did see
in
the
Rise,
Clone Wars episodes.
in Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine can absorb electricity. He was very keen on learning information about this because it's very powerful. And
Oh,
he can absorb electricity, become more powerful. I'm just like, was he being experimented with DNA to be part Zillo? Therefore, if he is biologically related to Ray, then Ray should be part Zillo.
okay. Did you see the Clone Wars episodes with the Zillabees?
Yes.
Right. So not only can he like absorb his energies and electricity, he's also resistant to lightsaber. Right. So it'd be really funny if like Ray was resistant to lightsabers as well.
So, and like I focus more on the lizard part than the electricity part when it comes to Ray. So I'm just like, well, she's able to heal her mark that she got in Last Jedi and next movie. It's
Mm,
completely gone.
mm,
It's like a
it
lizard.
is.
She's
Mm.
able to calm the Vexus snake
That
because,
was where I
as
thought
I
you were
put,
going.
lizard recognize lizard. And when she has a vision, when she has a vision of an evil version of herself, the evil version of herself has sharp teeth.
Oh, did she? I don't
Yes.
think I ever noticed
Yep.
that. Dang, I missed that detail.
Um,
Okay, that's fine. I love.
um,
It's one of the more off the wall theories that I'm like, you know what? I don't hate it.
yeah. No, this next one I don't believe. I just thought it was funny. It's the theory poses that Snoke is Mutt Williams.
Oh.
I don't believe
Oh
this, but the reason
no.
I thought about this is like, okay,
Oh
we
man.
had the creatures from Akator, and then they just kind of leave, and everyone's like, "Well, that was an adventure," and I'm like, "Mm-mm, no one was gonna go back." Mutt definitely seems like the character that would go back, and he would get like a
Okay.
piece, like a chunk of the wall.
Transdimensional.
Yeah, he'll get a chunk of the wall from creating the Crystal Skull from Akator, and he would get abducted. Maybe he was in Vietnam, I don't know. And he gets abducted. They start, putting implants into his brain so he can tap more into his anger, and they start doing experiments. So they look more like they do. They look long and lanky.
I don't know how
And
Stan feels about this idea.
listen, and then we have Snoke living vicariously through Kylo. He's just like, oh, my dad looks just like your dad. I want him to done this. He becomes the template for more pickled Snokes.
Your dad looks like my dad.
Yeah, and I've also made the joke with Jerry saying that Snoke kind of looks like an MC Escher like drawing. Like if the artist was really high or was making a clay mold of Harrison Ford and it like fell, it would look like Snoke.
Oh no. Oh
Uh,
man.
and this
That's
one's
so
not
wild.
a conspiracy. This last one is just facts.
Okay.
Luke clearly wants to smash his sister. It's just what it is, and you need to accept it, everybody. Um, so yeah, is there
You
any
know,
questions you have for
having
me?
just rewatched the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where Riff Raff and uh um how did I just forget her name? Magenta clearly we're fucking. It's I guess I can accept that Luke wants his sister. I
I
was so
mean,
wrong.
in
So
Legend,
wrong.
they kiss multiple times in the comics and in a
Did
novel.
they?
Yes, it's Splinter in Mind's Eye. He at
Oh,
the
I say the
Dormammu.
comics. I was like, I didn't
In Splinter in Mind's Eye, he
comics.
describes her voice as being like a sweet fruit.
Oh, I remember that. That I remember Splinter in Mind's Eye, but I did not remember
And
the
even in
comics.
the recent canon, there's a comic where he kind of gawks at her in a new outfit.
Oh
They
man.
put that into
The
like a comic that was intended for kid audience. That's
mhm.
wild to me. And Jerry says, that's the Pornhub generation writing Star Wars. That's where we get that quote from.
Goddamn, Jerry. I would never put things like that in those terms, but
Jerry is an amazing soul in the Star Wars
I
universe.
love that man. I love that
Uh,
man. How far into Ahsoka have you gotten?
I'm only one episode left.
Oh, okay. So
I would
yeah,
say
do you-
I really enjoy it. The episode before they do the big hop, or when they do the hop,
mhm. Yeah,
is my favorite so far. Um, there's some moments I'm just like, this is okay, and there's other moments like, oh, that's really cool. Like it's a kind of mixed bag for me. I can't say it's anywhere near my favorite of the current, recent live action TV shows.
yeah.
But uh, a lot of people that are in it, I'm really liking. Action's absolutely insane, and a very bittersweet situation where Ray Stevenson's no longer with us, but we have this great performer.
Yeah, yeah. His performance has been a revelation. Like I think we have been wanting someone this nuanced and interesting for a long time. The idea that like he was a Jedi, but isn't a Jedi. He's a mercenary, and like he's not really dark, but he's not really light, and you can throw the term gray Jedi in there.
To
He's
see,
not.
I don't like
I
saying
don't.
great Jedi. I say just.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But like I am so intrigued by this character, and I want to know his story from like the beginning. Like I want like what was his time like in the Jedi Order? Like what was his master like? You know, what was he doing during the Clone Wars? What happened with him at Order 66, and what was he doing during the Dark Times? Like like, how did you get away with being a mercenary in an empire that was trying to kill every force user they could kill? Like, I need to know this man's story, and like, and why did he start training Shin?
Yeah.
Like,
I have a fan casting for his master from back in the day. I want to be
oh,
Kiki Kwan,
who?
the actor who played Short Round.
Oh, right. Ooh, that would be fun. Ooh, that would
Mhm.
be. Yeah, he needs to show up in Star Wars. It's funny to me he's going to be in Loki, which I guess I will watch because he's in it. Um,
Yeah.
um,
Wow.
uh,
I love the way you
but
said
like,
that. Yeah. So,
I guess I'll watch it because he's in it. Uh, but like, uh, getting him into Star Wars would be like a coup. Like that would like seriously just because Indiana Jones and no, yeah, that would be
yeah,
great. That'd be great. I
they go
loved.
hand in hand.
Yeah, it's so good. Like I would love
Yeah,
that.
just like
I mean,
Mutton
I
Snoke.
was. But like we grew up with him. Like I mean, I did. Like in our house, we had bootleg VHSs where they put like three movies on a VHS, and we had Kingdom of the Crystal or Temple of Doom.
Some people
Oh, I
do.
said Kingdom of Crystal Skull. The Temple of Doom, um, Back to the Future 2, and The Goonies were all on like one VHS, and we watched that one VHS over and over and over for like years. Like those
So
three
you
movies
got
are like
double
ingrained.
feature, Mr. Kwan.
Yeah. No, that was what was that's the only reason why I knew they were the same person because I would watch those movies back to back. And yeah, Temple of Doom is my favorite because I'd seen it so many times. We didn't own the other ones. We
See,
only owned that
it's
one.
my
So
favorite. Part of it is him.
yeah,
Like, I
no,
think
he's
he's
great.
great.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, okay, ready for the club shadow?
yeah. Let's do it.
Uh, see, I get to test you on your Star Wars knowledge right here.
Okay.
Do you know the character of Pendra Siliu?
No.
See, you let me down. I thought you were the Rogue One man.
The little girl that almost dies that Jin saves. Okay. Okay.
Okay. For people that don't know, her home world is Jeddah. She's in Rogue One. She gets caught in between a battle between the partisans and the Empire when they're trying to take over the tank.
Mhm. Yep.
She's crying her little sweetheart out, and Jin, make sure that she doesn't die in this battle. And then our characters leave. We do know that she did not survive.
No,
Um,
she did not survive.
her mother, Hyuka, grabbed her after Jin saved her. They went
Mhm.
back home and they were trying to figure out a way to escape, but they don't make it in time, and she dies in her father's arm, presumably either just evaporated or just like crumbled under like
Yeah.
debris and whatnot. Like
Well,
there's no way.
since I'm assuming disintegrated since the blast hit Jeddah City. So and
Well, I guess it was a little further out. Um, Yeah, because it doesn't quite because it doesn't quite work the way the shot to Alderaan did because it just exploded the whole planet. That was just like
right.
they basically just made like a 50 to 100 mile like sinkhole kind of thing. Like I
Yeah.
know in the comic they
Which
show like
Luke,
there's just like a little
yeah,
bite taken out.
it was a pretty big bite. But Luke is able to visit the planet later, and it's
Yeah,
that giant,
yeah,
great
and
like
that's
whole
the
like
very off-putting art
kind of
done
like
by Pedro Larroca, who I'll never stop complaining about.
a okay.
Because he traces from images from the movies, so all I can think about is that what happened in that movie. It's hard for me to think about what's happening in the comic right now.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
and
have a hard time with his art as a Star Wars artist. I don't mind his other stuff, but his Star Wars stuff is like
yeah, if that's the biggest beef I'm gonna have as Star Wars YouTuber, whatever. Like I
Yeah.
said, you traced. I'm like, there's like you swear with some of these beefs, like you think someone's gonna actually pull up and get the cat for how some people act on the Twitter posts and whatnot. Is there anything you want to say before we end it?
No, I'm glad that you brought that, that to my attention because I did not know her name. So that'll be a good one to try to remember in the future.
Yeah.
Hopefully Eli doesn't try to pull that one out for the next trivia competition, or
Uh,
maybe he does and I get it right. So
well, did you at least have fun, even though we had
yeah.
disagreements about certain material?
Oh, none of these disagreements are that serious. Like,
Oh yeah.
uh, like,
I just like
I,
making
I
jokes.
disagree with. Yeah. Like, I disagree with everybody about Star Wars stuff. I don't know anybody I agree with all
Yeah, I'm
Star
not
Wars
saying,
things with 100%.
but you better watch your back.
Yeah. Yeah, just like that's kind of one of the great natures is like if you don't take this too seriously, like you can disagree about this franchise and still
Yeah,
be the best of friends with people.
like one big disagreement I have with other Star Wars fans is that I think that Donald Glover / Travis Gambino's performance as Lando is way better than Billy D. I
Okay,
love Billy D. I think he is a good actor, but I don't think he's
I have
doing
the
as much with the
wild.
performance.
I have a wildly different opinion on that. I think that Glover was the weakest part of Solo.
See, it's weird how we get this whole
And I
thing.
love him. And the thing is, I love him. Like everything else he does, is great. I mean, I love Atlanta. Like I love Community. Like I love all these things that he's done. I just like well, it's not my
Him
favorite
in
part
Adventure
that he's
Time.
ever done. Yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't watch Adventure Time.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
well, maybe that's one, don't worry. Maybe that's one thing I'll put you on to.
Okay, I
Well,
hear great things about it.
this is the longest video I've done, so I'm gonna
Sorry.
end it. Oh, you're fine. I had fun.
Yeah,
I just had to
good.
pee.
No, I understand, and I have to go pick my husband up, so this is good.
All right. Well, you have a good night. Stay
You
safe.
too.
All right.
Yeah, you too.
It's Honest Claude. I'm Eric Elliott. There's Book O'Brien. Have a good night. Have a good day. Whatever.